Our arrival in the country had been big news to start with, since a country of only 270,000 people does not have much news in January. Our dawn departure 3 days earlier had attracted numerous tourists and had been widely covered by the local media. So naturally, our rescue was all over the press. News reports had us as these nutty Americans trying to drive around Iceland in January. It was not going to look good if we got killed. So when we set out across the mountain 2 days later, we were escorted by the rescue squad in their big-time, all-terrain, four-wheel drive vehicle, custom-made to go anywhere in Iceland in the worst conditions conceivable. There was nothing this machine could not do, nobody it could not rescue. Until the rescue squad drove it off the mountain. We had to rescue them. You can imagine the Icelandic press. The story played better than the original rescue. Here were these hapless American tourists, up against the Icelandic winter, and they had to rescue the rescue squad. And we had it all on videotape, which I naturally shared with the media. The tape shows me shoveling snow as fast as I can, trying to save Iceland's experts. And it shows Paige having second thoughts. Not 5 days into the trip, Paige was in shock, literally. Ashen, quivering, panicked, showing the clinical symptoms of shock. There she was on videotape thinking, even the rescue squad is a disaster. All the warnings of bandits in Russia and malaria in Africa had not prepared her for this. I had been around the world before, and I knew that this, our first predicament, was not going to be our last. We were trapped in a blizzard. We survived. That's part of the adventure, I told her, exhilarated by our escape. We didn't save ourselves, she said. Thank God the rescue squad came along. We're alive, I said. We made it. That's part of the excitement. Excitement, Jim? She said. There I was thinking, this is the guy I'm trusting my life to, and he doesn't know how to drive? What on earth am I doing? There I was, stuck in 2 feet of snow, wearing tennis shoes in an Arctic blizzard. That, I said, is what's so much fun about going around the world. Paige did not quite feel that way. But we made it all the way around Iceland, and we discovered a country in the midst of enormous change. There were young people everywhere we went. The streets, bars, and restaurants all were packed with kids. Well over half the population of Iceland is under 30 years old. People under 50 are heavily represented in positions of influence in the country. Iceland, demographically, is the 4th youngest country in the world, and that alone will lead to the most dramatic changes in the way it is run after centuries of isolation. Because agriculture is still heavily protected and there are high tariffs on imported foodstuffs, basic necessities are currently so expensive that many people have to work 2 or 3 jobs to maintain their living standard. But the country is becoming more urban. A majority of the population now lives in Greater Reykjavik. With fewer and fewer farmers to protect, price supports are much harder for politicians to justify. Subsidizing food production on a volcanic island that is contiguous to the Arctic Circle is perceived by youthful voters as an increasingly ludicrous extravagance. Restrictions on foreign investment, especially in the energy sector, have condemned the country to little development in that very lucrative resource as well. The same outdated thinking behind the protection of those industries is directed at safeguarding the nation's cultural heritage. Iceland was a Danish colony for hundreds of years, and it is still mandatory for all school children there to study Danish as a second language. Ponder that for a minute. Denmark is a nation of 5 million people, so there may be 7 million people on Earth who speak Danish. Doing so is hardly a competitive advantage in today's world, and forcing kids to study the language clearly holds Iceland back. The sad fact of the matter is that sometime within the next 100 years, there may be only about 30 languages left in the world, and Danish will probably not be among the survivors. One of the more visible changes the world is undergoing right now is the end of the age of empire builders. Over the past 300 years, thanks to technological advances, countries tended to grow bigger and bigger. That tendency is undergoing reversal. There are about 200 countries in the world today. Over the next 3 to 5 decades, there will be 300 or 400. Many have already begun to disintegrate. The Soviet Union is now 15 countries. Yugoslavia is now 6. Czechoslovakia is now 2. Ethiopia, 2. The emergence of smaller nations from the ashes of collapsing empires may lead to wars, but need not do so necessarily. If borders remain open to trade and migration, we will all be better off. Evidence of the trend is visible in Europe, but it is even more apparent beyond it, in Africa, and especially in Asia. It is in Asia, the crucible of some of the world's oldest civilizations, that many of the more immediate changes of the new millennium are taking place. and Paige and I were eager to get there.